Teachings of Lord Caitanya, the Golden Avatar, a treatise on factual spiritual life by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Chapter 32, Conclusion. The next day, Sriman Ramananda Rai again came to see the Lord in the evening, and there were further discourses on transcendental subject matter. Quote, "What is the highest standard of education?" Unquote. Lord Caitanya began his inquiry, and Ramananda Roy immediately replied that the highest standard of education is knowledge of the science of Krishna. The standard of material education is sense gratification, but the highest standard of spiritual education is knowledge of the science of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:29-49 states, quote, "That work which pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the highest work, and that science or knowledge which places one in full Krishna consciousness is the highest knowledge." Unquote. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, while instructing his childhood friends at school, stated that hearing of the Lord, chanting about Him, remembering Him, worshiping Him, praying to Him, serving Him, making friends with Him, and offering everything to Him constitute the highest spiritual knowledge. Then Lord Caitanya asked Ramananda Roy, quote, "What is the greatest reputation one can have?" Unquote. Ramananda immediately replied that a person reputed to be Krishna conscious should be considered the most famous man in the world. One who is famous as a Krishna conscious man has eternal fame. In the material world, everyone is striving for three things. He wants his name to be perpetuated, he wants his fame to be broadcast all over the world, and he wants some profit from his material activities. But no one knows that all this material name, fame, and profit belong to the temporary material body, and that as soon as the body is finished, all name, fame, and profit are finished also. It is only due to ignorance that everyone is striving after the name, fame, and profit connected with the body. But actually, it is deplorable to become famous on the basis of the body, or to become known as a man of spiritually developed consciousness without knowing the Supreme Spirit, Vishnu. Real fame belongs to one who attains Krishna consciousness in this very life. According to Srimad Bhagavatam 6:3, 20-21, there are 12 authorities, and they are all famous because they are all great devotees of the Lord. These authorities are Brahma, Narada, Lord Shiva, Manu, Kapila, Prahlad, Janaka, Bhishma, Shukadev Goswami, Bali, Yamaraj, and the Kumaras. These personalities are still remembered because they are all great stalwart devotees of the Lord. In the Garuda Purana, it is said that in the age of Kali it is very rare to find a famous devotee of the Supreme Lord, a position better than that of such demigods as Brahma or Lord Shiva. Concerning talks between Narada and Pundarika, Yudhishthir said, quote, "He is most famous and can deliver all others who, after many, many births, comes to understand that he is the servant of Vasudeva." Unquote. Similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Krishna tells Arjuna, "Bahu nang janmanam ante jnanavan mang prapadyate Vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabhaha." Quote, "After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare." Unquote. In the Adi Purana, it is said that liberation and transcendental life follow all the devotees of God. In the Brihan Naradiya Purana, it is stated, in the Brihan Naradiya Purana, it is stated that even personalities like Brahma and the other demigods do not know the value of a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Garuda Purana points out that out of many thousands of Brahmins, the one who is expert in performing sacrifices is famous. Out of thousands of such expert Brahmins, the one who is expert in the knowledge of the Vedanta Sutra is more famous. And out of many, many thousands of such Vedantists, the one who is a devotee of Lord Vishnu is most famous. There are many devotees of Vishnu, and out of them, he who is unflinching in his devotion is most famous and is eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. In Srimad Bhagavatam 3:13-4, it is also stated that there are many famous students of the Vedas, but that one who is always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart is the best student of all. In the Narayana Vyuhastava prayers, it is said that if the great Brahma is not a devotee of the Lord, he is most insignificant, whereas if a microbe is a devotee of the Lord, he is most famous. Lord Caitanya next asked Ramananda Roy, quote, "Who possesses the most valuable thing in the world?" unquote. Ramananda Roy replied that he who has love for Radha Krishna possesses the most valuable jewel and the greatest riches. One who is addicted to material sense gratification or material wealth is not really wealthy. When one comes to the spiritual platform of Krishna consciousness, he can understand that there are no riches more valuable than love of Radha Krishna. It is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam that Maharaj Dhruva sought out the Supreme Lord because he wanted to get some land, but that when he finally saw Krishna, he said, quote, "I am so pleased, I don't want anything," unquote. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also stated that if one takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or in other words, is elevated to the supreme state of love of Godhead, he has nothing more to aspire to. Although such devotees can attain whatever they desire from the Lord, they do not ask anything from him. When Lord Caitanya asked Ramananda Roy what is the most painful experience in human society, Ramananda Roy replied that separation from a pure devotee is the most painful experience. In other words, when there is no devotee of the Lord present, there is great suffering in society, and association with other people becomes painful. In Srimad Bhagavatam 3:30, 6-7, it is stated that if one who is bereft of the association of a pure devotee tries to become happy through society, friendship, and love devoid of Krishna consciousness, he is to be considered in the most distressed condition. In the Brihad Bhagavatamrita 1.554, it is stated that the association of a pure devotee is more desirable than life itself, and that in separation from him one cannot pass even a second happily. Lord Caitanya then asked Ramananda Roy, quote, "Out of many so-called liberated souls, who is actually liberated?" unquote. Ramananda replied that one who is completely saturated with devotional love for Radha and Krishna is to be considered the best of all liberated persons. Similarly, it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 6:14-5 that a devotee of Narayana is so rare that only one can be found among millions and millions of liberated persons. Liberated people. Quote, "And out of all songs, what song do you think is the best?" unquote, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked. Ramananda replied that any song which describes the pastimes of Radha and Krishna is the best song. The conditioned soul is captivated by sex. All literary works of fiction, dramas, novels, and so on describe love between men and women. Since people are so attracted to this kind of literature, Krishna appeared in this material world and displayed his transcendental loving affairs with the gopis. There is an immense literature dealing with the loving exchanges between the gopis and Krishna, and anyone who takes shelter of this literature, or of the stories about Radha and Krishna, can enjoy actual happiness. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33-36, it is said that the Lord displayed his pastimes in Vrindavan in order to reveal his actual life. Any intelligent person who tries to understand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna is most fortunate. The songs that tell of those pastimes are the greatest songs in the world. Lord Caitanya then inquired, quote, "What is the most profitable thing in the world, the essence of all auspicious events?" Unquote. Ramananda Roy replied that there is nothing as profitable as the association of pure devotees. Quote, "And what do you recommend a person should think of?" Unquote, Lord Caitanya asked. Ramananda replied that one should always think of the pastimes of Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness. Krishna has multiple activities, and they are described in many Vedic scriptures. One should always think of those pastimes. That is the best meditation and the highest ecstasy. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2:36, Shukadev Goswami confirms that one should always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, one should not only think of him, but also hear and chant his name, fame, and glories. Quote, "And what is the best type of meditation?" Unquote, Lord Caitanya inquired. Quote, "He who always meditates on the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna is the best meditator," unquote, Ramananda Roy answered. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-14, quote, "It is the Supreme Personality of Godhead alone, he who is the master of all devotees, whose name one should always chant and who should always be meditated upon and worshipped regularly," unquote. Where should a person live, giving up all other places, unquote, Lord Caitanya next inquired. Ramananda replied that one should give up all other places and live in Vrindavan, where Lord Krishna had so many pastimes. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:47-61, Uddhava says that it is best to live in Vrindavan, even as a plant or creeper. It is in Vrindavan that the Supreme Lord lived, and it was there that the gopis worshipped him, the ultimate goal of all Vedic knowledge. Quote, "And what is the best subject to hear of?" Unquote, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next asked. Quote, "The pastimes of Radha and Krishna," unquote, Ramananda replied. Actually, when the pastimes of Radha and Krishna are heard from the right source, one at once attains liberation. Unfortunately, sometimes people are misguided because they do not hear these pastimes from a realized soul. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33-39 that one who hears the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis will attain the highest platform of devotional service and be freed from material lust, which overwhelms everyone's heart in the material world. In other words, the actual result of hearing the pastimes of Radha and Krishna is to get rid of all material lust. One who does not become freed from material lust in this way should not indulge in hearing of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Unless we hear from the right source, we will misinterpret the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and think they are ordinary affairs between a man and a woman. In this way, we shall be misguided. Quote, "Who is the most worshipable deity?" Unquote, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next inquired. Ramananda Roy immediately replied that the transcendental couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, is the ultimate object of worship. There are many worshipable objects. For example, the impersonalists worship the Brahma Jyoti, but by such worship one becomes bereft of life's symptoms and becomes just like a tree or other non-moving living entity. Those who worship the so-called void also attain such results. Those who are after material enjoyment, bhukti, worship the demigods and achieve their planets and thus enjoy material happiness. Lord Caitanya next inquired about those who are after material happiness and those who are after liberation from material bondage. Quote, "Where do they ultimately go?" Unquote, he asked. Ramananda Roy replied that those who aspire for liberation ultimately turn into trees, and that the others attain the heavenly planets where they enjoy material happiness. Ramananda Roy went on to say that those who have no taste for Krishna consciousness or spiritual life are just like crows who take pleasure in eating the bitter nimba fruit. It is the poetic cuckoo that eats the buds of the mango tree. The unfortunate transcendentalists simply speculate on dry philosophy, whereas the transcendentalists who are in love with Radha and Krishna are just like cuckoos, enjoying the buds of the mango tree of love of Godhead. Thus, those who are devotees of Radha and Krishna are most fortunate. The bitter nimba fruit is not at all eatable. It is simply full of dry speculation and is fit only for crow-like philosophers. Mango buds, however, are very relishable, and those in the devotional service of Radha and Krishna enjoy them. Thus, Ramananda Roy and Caitanya Mahaprabhu talked for the entire night. They sometimes danced, sometimes sang, and sometimes cried. After they had passed the night in this way, at dawn Ramananda Roy returned to his place. The next evening, he returned to see Caitanya Mahaprabhu. After discussing Krishna for some time, Ramananda Roy fell at the feet of the Lord and said, quote, "My dear Lord, you are so kind to me that you have taught me about the science of Krishna, the science of Radharani, the science of their loving affairs, the science of their rasa dance, and the science of their pastimes. I never thought that I should be able to speak on these subject matters. You have taught me as you formerly taught the Vedas to Brahma." Unquote. This is the system of receiving instructions from the Supersoul. Externally, he is not to be seen, but internally, he speaks to the devotee. That is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10. The Lord dictates from within to anyone who is sincerely engaged in his service, and the Lord acts in such a way that such a person can ultimately attain the supreme goal of life. When Brahma was born, there was no one to instruct him. Therefore, the Supreme Lord himself instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge through Brahma's heart. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.22, Shukadev Goswami confirms that the Gayatri mantra was first imparted within the heart of Brahma by the Supreme Lord. Shukadev Goswami then prays to the Lord to simply help him speak Srimad Bhagavatam before Maharaj Parikshit. The first verse of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describes the Supreme Absolute Truth as he who instructed Brahma through the heart. In that verse, Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, states, quote, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of the cosmic manifestation and its maintenance and dissolution as well." If we scrutinizingly try to understand the Supreme Truth, we can understand that he knows everything directly and indirectly. He is the only Supreme Personality, and it is he only who is fully independent. He alone instructed Brahma as the Supersoul within. Even the greatest scholars become bewildered in trying to understand the Supreme Truth because the entire perceivable cosmic manifestation is situated within him. This material manifestation, a byproduct of fire, water, air, and earth, only appears to be factual. It is in him alone that the spiritual and material manifestations, as well as the living entities, rest. Therefore, he is the supreme truth. Unquote. Ramananda Roy continued speaking to Lord Caitanya, quote, "First I saw you as a sannyasi, and then I saw you as a cowherd boy. Now I see before you a golden doll, and due to its presence your complexion has become golden. Yet I also see you as a dark-complexioned cowherd boy. Will you kindly explain why I am seeing you in this way? Please tell me without reservation." Unquote. Quote, "It is the nature of highly elevated devotees to see Krishna in everything," Lord Caitanya replied. "Whenever they see anything, They do not see the form of that particular thing. They see Krishna. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.45. Sarva bhuteshu ya prashyed bhagavad bhavam atmanaha bhutani bhagavatyatmani esha bhagavatotamaha. Quote, one who is highly elevated in devotional service sees the Supersoul Krishna, who is the soul of all individual souls. And that was the translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam verse, and the quotation of Lord Caitanya continues. A similar passage is found in the 10th canto, 10.35.9, where it is stated that when Krishna came before the creepers, plants, and trees of Vrindavan, which were laden with flowers and fruits, because he was the soul of their soul, they all bent down in the ecstasy of love for him and became thorny. Because you have the highest conception of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, Lord Caitanya concluded, you are seeing Radha and Krishna everywhere, unquote. Ramananda Roy replied, quote, Sir, I request that you not try to hide yourself. I understand that you have accepted the complexion and mode of thinking of Srimati Radharani, and that you are trying to understand yourself from her viewpoint. You have advented yourself to take this point of view. Although you have incarnated mainly to understand your own self, you are at the same time distributing love of Krishna to the world. Now you have personally come here to deliver me. I request you not to try to deceive me. It is not good for you, unquote. Being very satisfied, Lord Caitanya smiled and showed Ramananda his real form as the combination of Sri Radha and Krishna, a form he had never before shown anyone else. Thus, Lord Caitanya was Sri Krishna himself with the external features of Srimati Radharani. His transcendental ability to become two and then to become one again was revealed to Ramananda Roy. Those who are fortunate enough to understand Lord Caitanya, as well as the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, are able, by the mercy of Sri Rupa Goswami, to know the real identity of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's a plate. And the caption to the plate says, Lord Caitanya smiled and showed Ramananda Roy his real form as the combination of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. I'll show that again. Upon seeing this unique feature of Lord Caitanya, Ramananda Roy fainted and fell to the floor. Lord Caitanya then touched him and he came to his senses. Ramananda Roy was surprised to see Lord Caitanya in his mendicant dress again. Lord Caitanya embraced him and pacified him and said that Ramananda was the only one to have seen this form. Quote, because you have understood the purpose of my incarnation, you are privileged to have seen this particular feature of my personality, the Lord said. My dear Ramananda, I am not a different person with a fair complexion, a Gaura Purusha. I am the selfsame Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, and due to contact with the body of Srimati Radharani, I have now assumed this form. Srimati Radharani does not touch anyone but Krishna. Therefore, she has influenced me with her complexion, mind, and words. In this way, I am just trying to understand the transcendental flavor of her relationship with Krishna, unquote. The fact is that both Krishna and Lord Caitanya are the original personality of Godhead. Therefore, no one should try to separate Lord Caitanya from Sri Krishna. In his form of Sri Krishna, he is the supreme enjoyer, and in his form of Lord Caitanya, He is the supreme enjoyed. No one can be more super excellently attractive than Sri Krishna, and no one but Sri Krishna can enjoy the supreme form of devotion, Srimati Radharani. All Vishnu forms but Sri Krishna lack this ability. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 482, it is stated, or it is said, that Srimati Radharani is the only personality who can infuse Govinda with transcendental pleasure. Thus, Srimati Radharani is the chief of all the damsels of Vraj who love Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Quote, "Please rest assured that I have nothing to hide from you," Lord Caitanya told Ramananda. "Even if I do try to hide something from you, you are such an advanced devotee that you can understand all my secrets. I request that you please keep them secret and do not disclose them to anyone. If they were revealed, everyone would consider me a madman. The facts I have disclosed to you cannot be understood by materialistic people. Were they to hear of them, they would simply laugh at me. But you can understand these secrets. Please keep them to yourself. From a materialistic point of view, a devotee in the ecstasy of love for Krishna is mad. Both you and I are thus just like madmen. So please, don't disclose these facts to ordinary men. If you do, they will surely laugh at me." Unquote. Lord Caitanya passed 10 nights with Ramananda Roy, enjoying his company by discussing the pastimes of Krishna and Radha. The discussions between them were on the highest level of love for Krishna. Some of these talks are described, but most of them could not be described. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, their talks have been compared to a metallurgic examination. The metals are studied in the following sequence: first copper, then bronze, then silver, then gold, and at last touchstone. The preliminary discussions between Lord Caitanya and Ramananda Roy are considered to be like copper, and the higher discussions are considered to be like gold. The fifth and highest dimension of their discussions, however, is considered to be like touchstone. If one is very eager to progress higher and higher to the position of the highest metallurgist, one must begin with an inquiry into the qualities of copper, then progress to bronze, then to silver, to gold, and so on. The next day, Lord Caitanya asked Ramananda Roy to allow him to return to Jagannath Puri. Quote, "For the rest of our lives, we can remain together at Jagannath Puri and pass our time in discussing Krishna." Unquote. Lord Caitanya then embraced Ramananda Roy and sent him to his own place. In the morning, the Lord prepared to start on his journey south. He had met Ramananda Roy on the riverbank near a temple of Hanuman. After visiting that temple, he left. As long as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained at Vidyanagara, all kinds of people met him, and by his grace, everyone became a devotee of the Supreme Lord. After Lord Chaitanya's departure, Ramananda Roy became overwhelmed due to his separation from the Lord, and he immediately decided to retire from service so he could meet the Lord again at Jagannath Puri. The discussions between Ramananda Roy and Lord Caitanya deal with the most concentrated form of devotional service. By hearing these discussions, one can understand the pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna, as well as the confidential role played by Lord Caitanya. One who is fortunate enough to have faith in these discussions can enter into the transcendental association of Radha and Krishna.